This channel is made possible by viewers like you. My viewers, subscribers, and patrons greatly help to keep this channel going. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all of you. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any uploads. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you'll get access to what I'm working on, previews of upcoming content, and even early videos, along with other tier options for those that are interested. Thank you, and now on to the video. The Callisto Protocol finally released its story DLC, and it has a lot of people mad about the ending. Considering I actually enjoyed the main game while also acknowledging the flaws, I thought it might be interesting to discuss the new ending for the game. So at the end of the base game, Jacob allows Danny to escape with the sample, and we potentially are led to think that Danny is going to be the one to expose everything that was going on here. Jacob is about to be overwhelmed by a horde of enemies, and we follow Danny as she escapes. Before the end, we see the camera come back down to show Jacob is in fact alive, contacted by the doctor, and we have a final jump scare from Ferris. Now it would appear that we would probably be starting from this point in the DLC with a final showdown and a potential escape from the facility. This really doesn't happen, so now this final ending sees Jacob fighting to escape, and once it seems like he has made it, we are presented with a plot twist that Jacob actually did not survive that battle with the Horde in the state we saw him in at the end of the base game. The doctor uses Jacob's body for his implants, as a means to send information to Danny so she can receive all of the evidence and help to expose the organization. And in the final moments, Jacob is then dead and the game ends. So essentially the DLC is all in Jacob's head, as he is barely kept alive for the doctor to send the information to Danny. I totally understand many people's frustration and resentment towards the ending. Jacob was our hero, and while the story went for a less is more route, he was still a guy that many of us rooted for. And at first, Jacob seems to be an innocent person caught up in this crazy situation, but in the main game, it's later revealed he was working with the UJC. He feels responsible for many of the events and essentially tries to make it right. We have seen all this before, but this aspect of the story and his character actually worked well, and it allowed us to get attached to him. I am a bit mixed on the ending myself. I liked aspects to it, and at the same time, I do think it could have been handled better to provide a better send-off to Jacob, along with potentially involving the player more as well. So I understand having Jacob die, that would fit the story. He is trying to right his wrongs, and at the end of the day, he dies so that can happen, and thus saves Danny and helps to expose the UJC. But the way the DLC ending does this makes it feel a bit cheap, or at least a bit half-baked. I kind of like the idea of having Jacob essentially hallucinating his final hours of the game, and even having that fake out that it was all a dream. But I want to provide a suggestion that I think might have improved this a bit more. So in the final moments when the player is watching the cutscene and seeing that Jacob is pretty much dead, this is where once this is revealed, the game should have given the player back control, and now we are back at that moment where we let Danny escape and are faced with the Horde. At this moment, the player is just told to survive, and you essentially try to last as long as possible. You can fully use whatever equipment you have, along with any supplies scattered around the room. Jacob makes his final stand, and we actually get to play it. I think this would have strengthened his death considerably, showing that he at the core of it is what he's hoping to do is try and bring down the UJC. He helped Danny escape with the sample, and then it is because of him fighting with all that he has left that allowed the doctor to use his body to send her research. Plus, adding this final moment of gameplay would have been all that much more impactful, and be a great moment of combining the storytelling through cutscenes, and especially through gameplay. Again, I'm not against Jacob dying. In fact, I'm completely okay with him meeting his end in this game, but it's all in how you do it. The DLC ending feels a bit cheap, since we don't essentially get to see him survive, or try to fight that horde to survive. This is all implied, where it would have been considerably more impactful to show it, and especially play it. Plus, by doing it how I suggested before, you could have your big twist moment, with it all being a dream, which honestly fits this genre to have a fake out of some kind, along with then earning the death, and providing good opportunity to the player to be involved with those final moments with Jacob. Now, fans have made suggestions that I thought were kind of interesting. Some have suggested that this ending sequence, all being a dream, was rewritten because the game did not sell well. Some say that the developers did this to essentially close out their game because another one will not be made. I do not know if I buy this completely, but it could certainly be true. Maybe years later we might get an interview from the team or even the writer that revealed that this was not their intended ending for the game, and it was changed based on the sales. I do think that how it ends now, it does provide some closure. Like I said, it could have been a lot better in how they executed it, but there is plenty of room for a sequel. I think the easiest idea would be to have the player assume the role as Danny, as she works to bring down the organization. Maybe we even see Danny in 2 different points in time. Maybe we play most of the game trying to bring down the UJC, and then have flashbacks to her sister before the events of the first title. Now this part may be a bit silly, but I could totally see there being a version of this. But a potential sequel could also bring back Jacob. His implants were used to send that information, maybe a part of himself was attached to it, and he could be put into a synthetic or robotic body or something like it. If done well, this honestly could work, but it sounds a bit silly. When I played Callisto when it first released, I was more in the camp that I enjoyed it. I did find plenty of flaws with it, but overall it was an enjoyable experience. Story-wise, I actually found it refreshing to have a narrative be a simple story with a small cast of characters. Each of the characters were given just enough so we could get attached to them. It's an example of doing a minimal type story and mostly doing it well, but there were 2 moments that stood out to me as being dumb writing moments that felt very contrived. One was when Elias died. I liked him, he was your first ally and he seemed to be trying to make up for something from his past. But the story has him die because his suit malfunctions in the cold, with Danny arriving seconds after his death. But no effort is made to try to warm him up in the vehicle, and an overall effort to honestly save him. I understand potentially killing him off, but these characters should at least try to do something. The inaction screams contrived because the writers couldn't think of a clever way to move the story along. The second dumb moment is when the warden shoots down a ship Jacob and Danny were going to use. Instead of trying to do something to stop him from shooting it down, they just stand there and let it happen. It made our heroes appear dumb because that is what the story needed for them in that moment to have the plot move forward. And before we got the DLC ending, I actually thought the base game ending wasn't that good because it gave off the appearance that the game was unfinished. Originally I said the main game should have cut after Jacob sacrifices himself for Danny. Zooming back in cheapens the sacrifice if you're just going to end your story there. Don't reveal that Jacob is actually alive and then cut to black. Save that for the DLC or something. Well, I guess we know that he didn't actually make it from this point on. So I guess when I look back at the original game again, I shouldn't be surprised that there would be elements about the DLC ending that I wouldn't like, because the main game did have moments that left me scratching my head. The Callisto Protocol is definitely a game that I think is a bit overhated, and overall it's actually a pretty good game. I read that the developers worked to patch and improve many aspects of it. A big one being is that you can heal yourself much faster now, which is good because this was a major problem in the base game. It was also a fair bit buggy when I played it, and even so, I've been wanting to go back and see how everything is now, with all the refinements and patches along with the new modes and add-ons. Let me know if this is something you would like to see me cover on this channel, as I've been itching to return back to this one. As far as the ending goes, there's parts I like and parts that weren't executed properly. And while I tried to provide a suggestion or 2 to potentially help improve the ending, I am not a game developer, so maybe if they had more time with this game or something else, they could have executed it better than what it was. As a new IP, I would very much like to see this group get another chance at this world. It sounded like this was not launched in the state the developers wanted, and clearly could have used a few more months of polish to their game. Even so, I did enjoy my time with this one. So what were your thoughts on Callisto, and more importantly, what are your thoughts on the final ending? Let me know all of this in the comments down below. If you're interested in being notified of new videos, please hit the subscribe button and bell. And if you would like to support the channel and get early access to content, please check out my Patreon. All of the links will be at the end of this video and within the description. And thank you very much for watching.